Good evening and welcome to our council meeting this evening, the 27th of March 2023. Lithgow City Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which Lithgow's communities reside. The council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Thank you. All councillors are present tonight. No apologies. Declarations of interest. I inform all those in attendance this evening that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Declarations of interest this evening? No declarations of interest. Confirmation of the minutes. Can I have somebody please move that we remove the minutes tonight?
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsoe and Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements. On behalf of the Lithgow City Council and the Mayor, who I would like to express sincere sympathy and condolences on behalf of our council to families who have lost loved ones since the last council meeting. Public forum.
Mayor, if I could please. I just want to mention the Lithgow show. You and I were both there and so was the General Manager, and I understand that they've had a 10 to 15 increase at the gate, so that's quite successful for them.
Yes, it was a great
The weather
time.
was
Yes.
fantastic, and I don't know about you, but I got severely burnt. But yeah, I just want to mention that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I endorse those remarks, by the way.
Thank you, Mayor. I also have one. I note that the chamber here has had a facelift, and on the whole, I think it's good. Nice, good, clean lines. But I would like to express my disappointment that the portraits of Ben Chifley and Joseph Cook, two former Prime Ministers who represented the city, have been removed.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Public forum. Item 7. Any person registered to speak during the public forum on matters included in the business paper and registered via the council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting will have the opportunity to speak. There will only be 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour in total, with each speaker having 3 minutes to speak. Speakers not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to speak on matters on the business paper if time permits. Our first speaker this evening is Mr. Martin Groff. If you would like to come to the microphone, thank you, Mr. Groff. Item number is 10. Yes, the Walden one. It's 10.2. I wrote it there. Sorry, 10.2.1, and he's representing the Walden Valley Association. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Martin Krog. I'm the President of the Walden Valley Association. I'm here representing the people and small businesses that live and operate in Walden Valley. The hardship experienced by residents and business in the Walden Valley over the last 5 months has been huge, and it's taken a tremendous toll on the health and well-being of everybody in the valley. I'd like to emphasise that we fully understand the nature of the safety and economic issues associated with the existing Walden Road. We're also incredibly grateful to Council for establishing the Donkey Steps track and for getting it to the point that it is at the moment. We note, though, that this work is ongoing as we speak, and that access via the Donkey Steps is extremely unreliable in its current condition, especially when it rains. And my interest, you know, has been closed for the last 5 days. Unless we get a safe all-weather Donkey Steps road, then residents, landowners, and especially businesses cannot survive the constant uncertainty regarding access and the final condition of the Donkey Steps track. Businesses will simply go to the wall if this uncertainty continues for too much longer. Council need to make a public commitment to a high standard, safe, all-weather Donkey Steps road, whilst issues with a permanent future solution are decided and implemented. If we have to wait several years until a permanent solution arrives, there will probably be no businesses left in the valley. Because we can't plan anything, we can't take bookings, and there is no business certainty with constant last-minute road closures. Lithgow's 2018 to 22 Regional Economic Development Strategy, which features Walden Valley heavily throughout, identifies that the tourism industry contributes 8.4% of employment and $62 million of gross value to the Lithgow regional economy. The other week, Paul Toole posted an announcement about the award of a further $1.39 million in funding for the Glowworm Tunnel precinct, bringing the total for the project to $4.15 million. He said this project will develop and deliver a full-day tourist experience in the Walden Valley. It will construct new visitor facilities at Nyans and upgrade existing facilities around the Glowworm Tunnel. The success of the Glowworm Tunnel upgrades in the valley and at Nyans and the long-term viability of the region's tourism industry, though, is on the line. Without a sealed, all-weather safe and accessible road into Walden Valley, and this project, along with several other significant projects, including our own state and federally funded community centre and emergency shelter, will be exceedingly difficult to deliver. Agenda item 10.5.2 tonight will be discussed in the Seven Valleys Tourism Committee. Walden Valley is one of those seven valleys. Walden Valley could easily be the jewel in the crown of Lithgow's ecotourism future, but it badly needs help because under the current conditions it could easily fail altogether, leaving the Lithgow LGA with only 6 viable ecotourism valleys. Lastly, in addressing the meeting here tonight, I've now missed the curfew that's been imposed on Walden Valley residents for the last 5 months, and I will not be able to get home tonight, or I won't be able to get home until tomorrow morning. Council cannot realistically expect the residents and businesses of Walden Valley to tolerate being under curfew for the next several years until someone provides Walden Valley with a permanent road and safe all-weather road. There needs to be a better way. I'll finish off by reiterating what I said earlier. Council needs to make a public commitment to a high standard, safe and all-weather donkey steps road while issues with a future permanent road are resolved. Otherwise, Walden Valley businesses will simply go to the wall in the not too distant future, and Lithgow LGA will lose a significant contributor to the local economy. Thank you for letting me address the meeting.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Krog. Mr. Jonathan Edgecombe, would you like to speak to this gentleman's request, please, and spread the news?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. As early as roughly 3 o'clock this afternoon, I'd like to inform Mr. Krog and the Walden Valley community that we last week we sought written confirmation from both the state and federal government under the natural disaster recovery arrangements relating to the Walden Road, because we understand that it's a project that's likely going to cost it's likely going to attract a figure approaching $30 million, and before reaching practical completion, we're likely to see 3 to 5 years lapse. So we've written to the state and federal government seeking that commitment, because it's untenable that that this situation that the Walden residents have been forced to endure be anything other than attract anything other than commitment from both state, local and federal government. So I'm pleased to announce that as of this afternoon, the state government through the federal government through the state government have committed $30 million to the Walden Road reconstruction and realignment process, but they've also committed to work with us for as long as it takes for that project to reach completion. So I'm very much appreciative of that commitment, and I hope it's some assurance to the Walden community, and we will continue to work steadfast and in a dedicated way to a permanent resolution to this project.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. I hope that you can deliver that news, Mr. Grog, down to your fellow Capity Valley Association members. It's very good news. Walden Valley, sorry. Interesting. Item 8.1, confidential mayoral minute. Could I have somebody move the recommendation, please?
Actually, Mayor, I've got a procedural one.
Yes.
Just to bring, I guess you can't get home anyway at this late stage, but I was just going, if there was more Walden residents in the gallery, I was going to say, can we bring that one forward, please?
I'll bring it
Disregard
forward.
that one. It's okay.
Disregard, thank you. Could I go back then, please, to page 4? Could I get somebody to move, Pete, the recommendation to move this item to the end of the meeting? Thank you, in closed council.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. (9.1) Notice of motion. Councillor McGee, 15-minute parking zone for Lithgow mobility aids. Councillor McGee.
Happy to second that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Cheers, mate. Yes, on a recent visit to the Lithgow Mobility Aids at 25 Main Street, Lithgow, I met Kevin and Catherine, and I've met quite a few of their staff over several visits there. Delightful people, hard-working, quiet achievers. You know, they don't rant and rave and carry on like pork chops. They just work 6 days a week, delivering a service, an invaluable service to the most needy in our community, the elderly and the disabled. And they just do a fantastic job of it. The walker that I was getting repaired was done quickly and efficiently, and is, hunky-dory again. However, they brought to my attention something that turns out it's been over a decade that they've been requesting this through various channels. State representatives, federal representatives, fellow councillors, and it's for a 15-minute parking zone at the rear of the facility. The lane is only 5 metres wide, as has been pointed out, and there's no centre line mark. It's a very variable two-way road. The wrong building has been highlighted here, so it's a little bit further than the 16 metres and the 34 metres. It's actually the next building away from the disabled zone at the rear, and at the front, obviously. But the thing about that lane is there is no sidewalk on it. There is nowhere but that 5 metres of road, which is a dual carriageway. So there's vehicles going both directions on that road. And, well, I had to go with this walker while I was taking it to get repaired. And they're pretty unwieldy. And to look behind you, even for an able-bodied person, is difficult enough. And I would hate to think of what it's like for someone with arthritis. Then it was explained to me that the pickup zone, the specific 15-minute parking zone, is for quite a select group. It's the people that are picking up oxygen bottles. So once again, a 5 metre wide dual carriageway that has to support foot traffic as well is just, it leaves nothing, no room for error. And these people have to manage, they're already on oxygen as a requirement. But these oxygen bottles, the most popular bottles are 4 kilograms in weight, and most people get more than one bottle. So I imagine with that little walker trying to juggle 4 kilogram bottles of oxygen as well. And it just becomes a nightmare. Like you might hear a car from behind, but I suppose when you're getting older as well, you become hearing impaired. The whole thing is an accident waiting to happen. And I just think that it is not unreasonable that after 10 years of asking that we grant this. The other thing that's happening in the area that was brought to my attention is that being a dual carriageway, and since the main street has been slowed to 40 kilometres an hour, and the end of Main Street where it meets Bridge Street has been blocked from people turning left, so that everyone has to wait until left or right, each vehicle turns singularly, that people are actually taking the laneway, because it's still 50 kilometres an hour, and using it as access to Bridge Street. And they're fairly moving along there. So with that in mind as well, I'd like to put an amendment that not only do we have a 15-minute specific parking zone, so the sign would actually say it's not a loading zone, it's not a disabled parking zone, it is a specific 15-minute parking zone for Lithgow mobility aids. That besides that, the amendment would be that we also drop the speed limit to emulate the main street to 40 kilometres an
Point of
hour in
order.
that lane.
Point of order.
Councillor Leslie?
This amendment is far too remote from the notice of motion that's been moved. It hasn't been able to, councillors have not been able to consider this on the merits before, and I believe that it should be ruled out of order. It may have value, it may have merit, but it should be raised as a separate notice of motion.
As you said, Councillor Leslie, it may have merit, it may have value. I will accept it. I usually would say no, but under this circumstance, I will accept that Councillor McGee go on with your notice of motion. Thank you, and you will be timed to Councillor.
In that case, I'll move dissent from your ruling.
Do you have a second, Councillor Leslie?
No, you don't need a second.
I'll put the motion then, a dissent against the Mayor.
I'd
All
like
those in favour?
to speak to it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's important for councillors to be able to consider items when they receive it on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before a council meeting, so that they can make their own assessments. They can check with friends and family or the people involved. This matter not only this amendment not only affects this particular business, it also affects other people in the street, other people in Main Street themselves. It's far too remote for it. I agree. It may or may not have merit. I can't determine that, but it should be considered on its merits, and of course it can't be considered to be a matter of urgency, as the move has spoken. It's been being dealt with for the last 10 years. One more month is not going to be critical with this matter, and therefore I believe that the proper rules of debate should apply.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. All those in favour of Councillor Leslie's dissension vote or motion? Any other discussion? Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Leslie is the only councillor voting for that. Thank you. Against? Thank you for your support, councillors. As Councillor Leslie said, this has been going on for 10 years. Any information that we can get, whether it's good or bad, we need to hear this to see what happens with the motion. Thank you. Councillor McGee, you've got just a couple of minutes, please. If I can ask for an extension of time for Councillor McGee, please. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Have a second to thank you. Councillor O'Connor, all those in favour of that, thank you. Councillor McGee, continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So basically, we've got something that we have looked at repeatedly. It has, I think that the fact that they're still asking and saying please, you know, it's the only thing that they've ever really asked for from generations in this community. The people that require this are the growing section of our community, the elderly, and there's going to be more and more. And if someone's hurt on that road, you know, it's 5 metres wide. And I think there's a couple of other things which will be in a separate notice of motion, where the disabled access that is supplied from the main street to the rear, you come out blind onto that dual carriageway at the end of that. Like, that is another notice of motion, because that's something that needs to be addressed. When you come out from behind that building, it's a brick wall straight onto a 5 metre wide dual carriageway with no footpath. There's no accommodation. But that is another subject. So I think, just to reiterate, that the signs be placed against the wall, flat against the wall, because there's no room on a 5. You know, if they stick out, they take out truck mirrors and things like that, because there's no weight restrictions on there. The laneway has less restrictions than the main street. You know, you could take a semi down that lane. You can't take a semi down the main street. So I just ask everyone to say that this is a reasonable thing. that it's not going to block a lane when this is being used for the 15-minute parking specific to Lithgow mobility aids. It won't be blocking a lane because the lanes are not marked. There's not enough room to have it marked. So people are not going to mind waiting if they have to wait to go around a parked car. And especially when they see what that is for. These people are good people providing an invaluable service. I can only reiterate that and can't stress it enough. Thank you.
Councillor Marnie?
I'll just speak briefly to it, and I thank Councillor McGee for bringing forward an important issue around accessibility in our town, and also acknowledge Councillor Coleman and others who have brought this forward in the past. I don't necessarily disagree with what Councillor Leslie was trying to get to. I'm not sure that when we start to build something that's specific for a business, I'm not sure whether that on a public road, whether that should have been a greater level of discussion. So I'm happy to support the 15-minute sign that is available for all customers in that area. We have a typical Victorian subdivision in Lithgow, as we do in many urban settings in Sydney, and there will be areas that will provide for parking in those laneways, particularly surrounding trade issues. So, as Councillor McGee's pointed out, I think it's a very specific need, and I'm happy to support your proposal. In regard to the amendment, I think that probably should go to the TALC committee. I'm not wanting to step away from your intent of what you're trying to do, but we are, as I think that's where Councillor Leslie was, I think, trying to bring something to that debate was that may well be something that needs to go in front of TALC to make a decision. I don't really want to go into a speed change. So I probably can't support the amendment, but I'll certainly support the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor
Madam
Marnie.
Mayor, can I ask a question? Has Councillor McGee moved both the motion and separately moved an amendment to the same motion? Yes. Well, I didn't hear anyone actually second the amendment. That seems unusual to me, that somebody who would normally moves a motion with their amendments, and then we have an amendment moved from the floor to either, to change it. But so we're getting a motion and an amendment. So there's moved by Councillor McGee. Is that correct? And could we have the wording up on the screen? That would be very helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. The General Manager will clarify that. Thank you.
So I pick up on Councillor Leslie's point. My interpretation is that Councillor McGee moved an original motion, and in moving that he added an overlay of another aspect of the speed limit. That was done subsequent to Councillor Marnie endorsing or seconding the motion that's in the business paper. Therefore, we don't have a second at the moment. Councillor Marnie's indicated he's not prepared to accept that revised original motion, so we require a seconder.
Can I have a seconder, please, for Councillor McGee's amendment? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour say yes.
No, so now we just need to open up the debate on that.
The debate now is open. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor on the same.
Councillor O'Connor, would you like to speak?
Yes. Yep. Thank you, Mayor. I think it's a great idea to put those signs, support the very good business that is there. And as for the speed limit, if it's good enough for Main Street, that's 10 or 12 metres wide, surely it's good enough for the laneway to be 40 k's. So I'm very supportive of everything Councillor McGee brought in.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Oh, yeah,
Councillor
Rice. What I gather is too, if the people collecting the oxygen have to go around to the back of the store, so if you park out the front,
You need to go up that back lane, get out onto the road and go into the back of the shopping area through that back lane. So that itself brings its own danger as well by reducing the speed and putting a parking lane instead of parking in Main Street or parking around the back. The other day, the parking around the back there near the council building where you've got on the diagram here, on the photo, there was no parking. So it made it very hard to park if you need to go across that road, get your oxygen and then come back. So I fully support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Councillor Goodsell?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm happy to speak against the motion. I do understand why it's come before us again. There is limited parking in that area. I use it regularly for my mother's disability needs, and I used it recently with 2 knee replacements as well. But I do understand that there is disability parking near that area. It does, however, need to be repainted. It looks terrible, and it's not very obvious where that parking is at the back of the shop near the council car park. There is a big council car park right there. I drove up there this afternoon, and my ute fairly sizable. I wouldn't like to stop there for 15 minutes. How is it going to be monitored? And I hope the mobility shop, please don't get me wrong, I support you in every way, shape or form, but there's no way that you're going to get buses up there or vehicles needing to attend the courthouse or, I just believe it's problematic. I think that there's no stopping there for a reason, and I don't think that we should be impeding on that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, I have concerns as well. I mean, I brought this forward back in 2020. And before me, yes, and Franklin Sitari as well. So this has been a long time issue. It has been, been rolling on for 10 years. I understand the concerns of the Lithgow mobility aids. I do have a question for the staff before I decide which way I vote. If this goes through, what happens? Do you know what I mean? Like, so what does that mean in the end? Like, how is that going to affect the space? And what happens to this?
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So I will reiterate that originally this request did go through TALC, and the request to install no stopping signs. It was a request from several members of the community, and it was assessed by TALC, and it was approved at the time to install no stopping signs the full way along that length of the lane to improve safety and reduce the risk of people having to get out of their vehicles in moving traffic in a narrow laneway. But if this is approved tonight, there is a history and precedent of taking matters such as timed parking zones or restricted parking zones through to the TALC for approval, for consideration and approval. So this matter would also need to be referred to the TALC if it's passed tonight.
Can I have
Thank
a
you, Mr.
follow-up
Edgecombe.
question, Mayor Statham, if I may?
Certainly.
So if this gets approved tonight, it'll have to go through to TALC anyway. If it goes through to TALC, they can then state, well, I'm sorry, but this is a no-go anyway. Is that correct? They could bounce it back anyway.
Through you, Mayor Statham, technically they can. That's absolutely within their right, but it's only a recommendation to the council. The council still has the ultimate decision whether it accepts or rejects their recommendation, and then there's a process to follow through that afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe.
Sorry, could
Anyone else wishing to speak tonight?
I get a bit of clarity on that comment by Mr. Edgecombe?
Certainly.
Does this need the approval of the Traffic Committee, which of course has other voting members, such as the police, the state member's own representative, whoever that may be, presumably the same one, and of course the RMS. So does it need the unanimous approval of the Traffic Committee before this could be implemented?
It needs to be referred to the Traffic Advisory Committee, but the TALC Committee is only a technical advisory committee in its own right. It doesn't have the ability to conduct work or commit the council to funds or commit the council to any action. So it's just, it provides advice to the council based on technical merit, and the council can accept or decline its recommendation accordingly. But the matter does need to go through to TALC.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe.
So just
You've already spoken, Councillor Leslie. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Statham, to Mr Edgecombe. Once that's decided on at TALC, will that come back to a council meeting to be decided on, or will it just be approved?
Mr Edgecombe?
Through you, Mayor Statham, absolutely. It's the common practice with all TALC recommendations before they are just that. It's a recommendation. They come to the council for endorsement and resolution.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. On the amendment, thank you. Councillor McGee, right of reply.
Yes, I just think it's a pretty straightforward safety concern that the speed limit be dropped. So the amendment, the amendment is just to make the speed limit the same as the main street. It's not a proposition from Wittgenstein. It's a pretty easy one.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Unanimous. Oh no, Councillor Goodsell is against it. Oh, she just put her hand up. So is that, do it again, please. Could I have a count again? Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Goodsell is against the amendment. Everyone else is for the amendment. Thank you. So now the... Pardon? Right, to the motion then. All right, all those in favour of the motion? Right, you have Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin. Not as yet, I'm not, no. Please, hands up, thank you. Councillor Coleman, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Statham. Thank you. Carried, thank you. Staff reports. Item 10. 10.1 is General Manager Report, National General Assembly. Thank you.
Happy to move.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
I think it speaks for itself, Mayor Statham. The conference is important. We need to be able to meet with our peers. We need to be able to lobby for things that we need here for the greater city of Lithgow, and we have that opportunity at this conference. It's also important that the General Manager goes and attends as well, because he needs to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
I think there's some very important issues that we need to lobby for, listed on page 7 on the commentary. So I think it's very important that we go to this conference.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Just to support the recommendation, but also one of the key issues, housing. I think that can only be resolved as a whole of government approach, both federal, state and local, if we are going to address the changing housing needs. The other thing is whether we genuinely in New South Wales want to retain small, rural and regional councils, or whether we end up with an English style scale, not necessarily an English style council in what they do. That's the risk for small councils under 20,000. And we need to be talking to federal members as well as our other regional councils in similar predicaments. The ability to manage ageing infrastructure is very apparent in our own LGA, and also the issues surrounding federal assistance grants. We need to lobby pretty hard to have them restored to their previous levels from where they are. The change coming down from around 1% to 0.5 gave us a gap of a magical figure of $6 million. I'm not sure where that figure's appeared in other conversations, but we need to see the federal government recognising local government for its role.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman. Oh, sorry, Councillor Goodsell.
I'd like to speak against this motion. I I've been on council for many years and I don't believe there have been any outcomes that I know of that have come back to this council directly affecting and influencing our community that have come back from these meetings. And we used to get reports. We used to get a report back from the people that attended. We've had none of those. And if our mayor and deputy mayor were attending it as a united party with a strategic, purposeful approach directly supporting our motion contributions, which there are none of. So we've got some key priority areas and a theme for this National General Assembly, but as council, we haven't considered any motions yet to attach. So I just don't believe spending $6,000 on sending 3 people down to the National General Assembly would be welcomed by the community at this time. We're in no different financial position than we were 12 months ago when we also discredited this and said we should be attending online. I think the money could be best spent elsewhere. I do believe that the money can't be reallocated. And if I could ask through you, Mayor, to Mr Gurney, is that the case?
Through you, Mayor Statham. Sorry, Councillor Goodsell, what was the question?
So we have Council of Finances and Expenses. So we can't reallocate that money anywhere to a more important.
The budget for the conferences for the National General Assembly and the State Conference are set in the Council of Facilities and Expenses policy. So you're correct, they cannot be transferred to another budget area unless there is a decision of council to do so.
Okay, I fully understand that. So sorry, I could keep going. So in which case, unless we were to have motions, like the community can't see what we're voting on tonight, they're just saying we're sending some people down to Sydney. How do we lobby? What are the results from lobbying just generally on those topics? They are important topics, but unless we're strategic, we don't know what comes out of that for our $6,000. However, there are 22 training courses, if that money can't be reallocated, for councillors to do. There's integrated planning, reporting, finances, wouldn't go astray for a code of meeting practice or effective meeting procedures, professional ethics, audit risk and training. We could do any number of things for that $6,000, and I don't think we should be telling the community right now we're going to a conference for $6,000 when we don't have any motions to raise or vote for or support.
Just for your knowledge, Councillor Goodsell, I've never attended in my 13 years on council. I have never attended one of these conferences, and I think I've only spent a few $100s of my allowance over the last 13 years on conferences. So it was going to be my very first time, and I guarantee you would have got a report back in no uncertain terms to what I spent that money on. I've already discussed the money issue with the General Manager, and he has explained to me that that money is there purely and simply for learning, for mentoring, doing courses like you've suggested. Since that I have not been before, I don't think I have a choice this time to go and attend and bring back a report of some nature. The General Manager would like to reply to your comments as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to put on the public record and explain to the council that, I think we should be active participants at this conference, and we are. In fact, the joint organisation will hold a meeting of joint organisation mayors and their other representatives with national government MPs whilst we're there, which is a new feature of being a member of the joint organisation. Also, with the Mayor's concurrence, at the 11th hour last Friday, I think it was, we submitted a motion which I again canvassed the joint organisation for any themes or subjects that could sit under these 7 points on page 7. And one of those went to the management of grants and how they can be more efficient and locally determined, depoliticised, funded up front and the like. So with the joint organisation's assistance, they're not able to run motions to the conference. They crafted a motion and I ran that via the Mayor and she agreed out of sequence of the council to submit that motion, and that'll be forwarded to the councillors tomorrow. And it's also my intention, I was speaking to the Mayor, that we do become more engaged next year, but there requires a lot of research so that you have motions that speak to the Australian government and their agendas. So what I'd like to do in the next year of this council is really ready ourselves. I, for instance, think that the manner in which regional and rural Australia is represented at the Australian government level is not appropriate or not adequate. And I think we should be working up papers along those lines in terms of how an Australian government could be more engaged. There is plenty of attention that's given to the urban areas and cities, but what of these places, and particularly places that are undergoing transition? So I think there's a really rich area there, but I think we need to research that more and develop a well-crafted motion and get the support of our peers across the rural and regional areas.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Also, Councillor Goodsell, I have been recently elected onto a health committee for Western Regional New South Wales, and even though health may be mainly state, I'm sure they'll have a health minister by the time this conference is on, and we need to make them realise that New South Wales region needs the best health facilities that we can possibly have. Speakers, please. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I do think that we need to be represented in these things. We can't just, save a few dollars here and there. We do need representation. I have been disappointed, like Councillor Goodsell says, like in the lack of feedback in, like it's only 1 year for me. But in that end, I'd like to nominate, if we have a councillor going, I'd like to nominate Councillor Marnie because he does speak very well, and I think he'd make a fantastic representative for us.
Councillor Marnie, if that is voted in your favour, are you willing to accept that? Because there's only 2 going. And the General Manager.
I very much appreciate Councillor McGee's confidence in me, and I say that very genuinely. It's not some, backhanded compliment. I think it's important. If we set a precedent with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, I am happy to step aside. You may find I'm there, but I won't be going there as a councillor. So I thank you for your confidence in that, but I've already had a conversation with my wife about having a trip to Canberra, and this sounds like an interesting thing, so I won't be looking for council to pay for it, but I thank you for your acknowledgement of that, Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I believe this is really important. We need representation. I think it's important for you, Mayor Statham, to be there. I think it's important for me to be there. We can, and we have worked as a team. We did work as a team at the state conference. Mayor Statham knows certain people, I know certain people, and we have worked together. I remember that the General Manager collected ideas at the last conference. He actually spoke to his peers and brought it back to this council. He brought it back from the state conference when he spoke to, the General Manager of Singleton and the General Manager of Muswellbrook, and he has learnt from those General Managers. I always find these are valuable because you learn from your peers, you obtain advice and ideas, and the world is changing. That is clear, and we need to be part of the process of change.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Goodsell is the only one refraining from, so it's carried. Thank you. Item 10.1.2, update Lithgow Community Private. Mr Craig Butler, thank you. Do you want to give a quick brief on this? No. Just a quick brief.
No, the report responds to Council's request for regular updates. Both the Mayor and myself and Michael McGrath are in regular contact with the board. Clearly, after the events of the weekend, we will reach...
Can we move it?
Yes, but I'll just get in Mr Butler to give a quick update.
We need a second.
Goodsell, thank you. A seconder, thank you.
Me. Bryce.
So as I was saying, we would, the remaining issue is the agreement and a request for a small amount of funding, and we would be advocating or prosecuting a case for those to be advanced with the new government. And I'd like to think that they would be favourably viewed, but at this point the Board of Lithgow Community Private are comfortable that they're having positive discussions with the local health district about the agreement.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillor Goodsell.
No, I've got nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Bryce.
No, I've got nothing.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
I do, if I could, please.
Councillor Cole.
The most important comment in this report is that considered by the New South Wales government for LCP's request for financial assistance to support LCP returning to pre-COVID levels of available working funds. We need to get on the front foot. We need to be ensuring that our health services are not passed over. We now have a new state government here now, and we need to be on the front foot of this. We need to ensure advocacy is continuing. We cannot afford to lose any services.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Martin.
I'd like to move an amendment just to make the recommendation a little bit more direct. I'd like to take the statement out of the very last paragraph, which recommends, so the recommendation becomes that the council maintain its current position of advocating for a long-term and viable working arrangement between the parties. And in the second part, I would, and that plays out as it's stated, I would like to have that direct communication be made with the incoming New South Wales Health Minister regarding the LCP's request for financial assistance to support LCP returning to pre-COVID levels of available working funds. So I'd like it to be a bit more proactive and in the first 30 days of this government, make it clear that we need to look at how population centres under 20,000 receive their health services.
Happy to second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Marnie.
So essentially, I appreciate the staff's report. It's really pleasing to see that some of the things are moving forward, but I can't say that I'm happy with the time frame that it's taking to resolve this, and it sits within the government's hand to resolve this matter. So I think we need to be a bit direct in where this goes, and I genuinely, it's something that I've taken interest in. I've had a number of people speak to me fairly high up in the health system about what they're imagining for what small population centres, their health systems might operate like. And I would like to think if we're on the front foot, and I'm confident with our General Manager that he and the Mayor will be able to articulate the importance of a nuanced health service for this area. This gives us an opportunity to move forward as this being part of that, one of those components of it. So that's I just, with the amendment, I'm just trying to make it a bit more direct and an action within the first 30 days. We don't want to be getting to the Health Minister when they're into their 90th day of work and they're getting occupied and busy with a whole lot of stuff. So I'd like to have this on their desk as soon as they find themselves in their office.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
I reaffirm what Councillor Marnie has said. We need to get this on their desk within the first 30 days. We cannot afford to lose this service.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce.
I think also the federal government fund private hospitals, and this is still a private hospital. We need to also lobby them for funding as well. I think it's not just the state government; it is the federal government who provide funding for private hospitals.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee.
Yes, I support Councillor Marnie's amendment. It's good, and it's first in, best dressed. You know, it's a new government, and get in there for sure.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie, right of reply.
Just to acknowledge what Councillor Bryce said, yes, it is again, it's a whole of government thing, and yes, those conversations need to be had with federal government as well.
Okay, I'll put the amendment. Thank you. All those in favour of the amendment? All those in favour of the amendment? Unanimous? Thank you. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion with the amendment added. All those in favour of the amendment, of the motion? Right of reply? No. No, she said before, just before, that she didn't have a right of reply. Is that right, Councillor Goodsell? Right. All that, just hands up again, sorry. That's carried, thank you. (10.2) Infrastructure Services and Reports. Walden Road, Review of Slope Risk Assessment.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'd like to thank Martin for coming along tonight and speaking to us on behalf of the community. As everyone's aware, that's a lengthy geotechnical report that's come back to council, virtually reiterating that council have correctly identified that the current Walden Road is of significant risk, and that to rehabilitate that road will run into millions and millions of dollars and be an ongoing burden on council. But tonight we welcome the decision by, I'm sorry, Mr. Edgecombe, but I can't remember who made that decision. But anyway, we welcome it, $30 million to go ahead with identifying the new route. However, I do believe Mr. Martin's commentary tonight wasn't based around funding. It was based around a secure access of the donkey steps, and as we heard, it's been closed all week. They can't use the coach road sometimes in weather events. There's only 5 vehicles that can go in and out at a time. So I guess what he's asking, and what and I know it's hard to put a date on it, but when will we have a secure access of the current donkey steps? Is that in the next couple of months?
Mr. Edgecombe.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. We continue to meet with the community weekly, and our advice to date, pending any significant weather that hinders the project progress, our expectation is that concrete matting will be completed and laid by the end of the second week of April. So, by all accounts, that will result in an all-weather seal, in an all-weather access applied to the route, and our minds will then immediately turn to what's next, whether it's bitumen seal or whether there are other improvements that need to be made. And we'll have those discussions in collaboration with New South Wales Public Works as project managers, but also Transport for New South Wales as funders of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Councillor Bryce.
I thought it was a very comprehensive report set out by Golders, and the report that we got. The concern is, of course, by using the existing Walden Road and fixing it, is the risk of loss of life. So it's really important that we look at an alternative, and it's very happy to hear that the government will be giving us $30 million to get that going and happening.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the procedure in the second week of April, if this road is open? Are people allowed to drive up and drive down whenever they like? Or is there going to be a set of lights? What's the procedure for these people that want to come up and down?
Mr. Edgecombe.
That's a really good question, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you for asking. It's been remiss of me. I haven't actually approached the council with a copy of the access strategy, but it's in version 5 at the moment, and the document's been developed as a collaborative effort with council, the community, public works, the local contractor, and a couple of other stakeholders. So it actively details all of those considerations, including traffic lights, how the traffic will flow up and down, restrictions on heavy vehicles, restrictions around time and why those are in place. So yes, long story short, yes, there is consideration of how that traffic will flow, and it includes traffic lights and one-way traffic, but I'll circulate the access strategy for the information of councillors early tomorrow. And if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I was just wondering, with the independent reports regarding the Walden Road and its unsuitability for any kind of rehabilitation, whereabouts are they released to the public? Like, whereabouts can a member of the general public find that information? I know it's in depth, we've got half of it here, but for someone who wants to know the nitty-gritty of why it is unsavable, where can that be found?
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Mr Jonathan Edgecombe, thank you.
Thank you once again, Mayor. So we do have a website which is dedicated to information, to holding and disseminating information relating to the Walden Gap and the road. So now that the risk assessment has been endorsed by, once this information has been endorsed by the council, it will be put on that website for any member of the public, whether they're in the Lithgow LGA or otherwise, they can access it. They'll also be able to access the strategies that govern how the road is used, and it'll be freely available and widely known that the access won't be for the general public. It will be for Walden residents and related business use only.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Just briefly, as Councillor Goodsell has, is thank Martin for coming and representing his community. The community that's staring down the barrel of probably 10 years of emotional and economic weathering that goes back into the droughts, the fire and the subsequent floods. And so there's a lot of pressure on this community, and I hope you're seeing us as a council. I think all councillors are seeing what's happening to you, and we're all very concerned about that. I'm pleased about the 30,000. I have got concerns at 30 million, because 30,000 will probably get you a bitumen coat on a section of it. 30 million. I do carry some concerns about council's financial capacity. I know the staff are thinking about that, but we really need to emphasise how funding bodies deliver that money and don't put us under significant financial stress to make payments. I can only empathise with the community out there about the challenges in front of them. I don't know whether we should actually, in fact, be looking at a partnership with the state government to project manage it and deliver it, given the scale of the project. So I'll leave that for staff to think about, but it's a sizable amount of money to bring in and put out of the financial system we've got, and it's also a substantial pressure on what is a small regional council to add in a very big project into their workload. So I just ask that those points be considered.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mr. Statham. I'd like to ask the question that Thomas Ebersol asked me in an email that he sent to myself and to all other councillors, which is, can another geotechnical survey be done at a time that's not after 1 year of rain, and when it's clearly going to be a difficult answer, and I understand the rain caused the problem, but if is it a permanent problem, or is it the rain that gave a result to the geotechnical survey and the answer we've got? So I think that he deserves an answer in public as to why that geotechnical survey is so widespread and strong.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Mr Edgecombe, would you like to address that question? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I thank Thomas for his comments. He raises an excellent point because ultimately we have suffered through 24 months of prolonged rainfall. There has been more rain falling over the Lithgow LGA than records began in 1890. So it's an incredibly difficult operating environment, but the rain isn't the direct result of the challenges that we currently face at the Walden Gap. It's the nature of the road itself and the foundations upon which it was built. It's been built upon essentially ancient colluvium, highly erodible material that is in place due to an ancient landslide that occurred many years ago, and the road was pushed through that area. Thankfully, today we have the technology available to us to identify these challenges, and we likely don't make those same mistakes when we build roads today. But essentially, because of the nature of the underlying road and the highly erodible state of the material that has been built on, it's extremely likely that in future years we'll experience similar events, and those poor water pressures and the saturation of that road will continue to occur and then dry and reoccur and become saturated again. And over time, the road integrity will continue to worsen, and these slope stability challenges will become more and more frequent. So, as I said, it's not really a matter of waiting until it dries out, which could also be a matter of several months, given the significance of the rain that we've had. It's more related to the overarching topography that the road is supported by and the inadequacy of its foundations.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe.
Madam Mayor Statham, I actually have another question, if I may. I think this is an important issue, and I hope you will allow me a second question.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. I understand there is, at some stage, a purpose-built road that is aimed and desirable to build. Could I ask actually where it starts, where this purpose-built road, where it starts and where it finishes?
Mr Edgecombe?
Through you, Mayor Statham, it's going to be a little while before we can state with certainty where the road, the permanent alignment's going to start and where it's going to end. You're referring to a permanent alignment, aren't you, Councillor Leslie? Yep. So there's going to be a little bit of time until we know exactly what that looks like. We have completed a corridor, an alternate corridor study, which has identified the rough area that the road needs to be built based on considerations of time, environment, amenity, and several other factors. But what the final alignment actually looks like in reality is going to be an incredibly detailed and technical, the result of an incredibly detailed and technical study, which has been commenced and is likely going to cost around $500,000 in its own right. So as soon as we have further details about what an alignment will look like, we'll be out in the community and talking with them about it. We'll be also speaking with our peers in government to identify the most flattest and efficient pathways for the approval of such a road, given those environmental constraints, and also noting the fact that it is a designated Aboriginal place. So we can't say with certainty what it's going to look like, but as soon as we do know, we'll be out in the community and speaking with the council about it also.
Again, a follow-up. Is it anticipated that the road would start at A, Glen Alice, B, the Glowworm Tunnel, or 3, somewhere near Wallerawang?
Speaking generally, the road will commence likely at the top of the Walden Gap and traverse the existing Donkey Steps corridor, roughly where it is, and come out at the valley floor. So it's expected that there'll be minimal, if not negligible, impacts to time. But again, there is incredibly complex engineering that goes into this, so it might be found that the alignment requires tweaking and we need to work elsewhere, but time will tell, and we'll have that information at hand as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. Any more questions, Councillor Leslie? No. Councillor Coleman?
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I acknowledge that we've received $30 million from Transport New South Wales. Is that correct?
To answer? Oh, well, here it just says local government, community in place, regional and outer metropolitan transport for New South Wales, Director Infrastructure and Services, Lithgow City Council. So I'm assuming that it is to do with the, yes, please, thank you. Disaster recovery funding.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. So Mayor Statham is correct. Under the Natural Disaster Relief Recovery Arrangements, which is a federally funded program, it's administered by the state government for disaster declared regions, of which Lithgow is one. Essential assets impaired by disaster, the recovery is compensable under those arrangements. So, we note that this is a project of strategic significance, and also its value is not it's significant as well. So we've reached out to the state government, and they have confirmed that the funding envelope of roughly $30 million is approved and will be made available for this project.
If I may, Mayor Statham, have a follow-up question to Mr.
Yes.
Edgecombe through you. Is $30 million going to be enough? Should we not be lobbying federal government? That's my concern. That, I mean, $30 million sounds like a lot of money, but this is a major project.
Through you, Mayor Statham, you're right. $30 million is only the envelope that we've identified at this early stage. Once we've conducted that detailed feasibility and engineering analysis, we'll know a little bit more in more detail what a more accurate cost might be. However, as I mentioned, that commitment from the government is there for that $30 million. As we get more detailed information about long-term costs, we'll continue to work closely with Transport for New South Wales and with the federal government, who ultimately dispenses the funding, and make sure that the envelope is adjusted accordingly.
The General Manager would like to make a comment on that. Thank you.
So if I read precisely from the wording that we received this afternoon, is that Lithgow Council can be assured that reimbursement for the re-establishment of road connection to Walden Valley will be funded via the disaster recovery funding arrangements, and in brackets it acknowledges a current, and importantly it uses the word estimate. But if you put those words to the side, the letter of comfort that we've been given here is that the re-establishment of the road connection to Walden Valley will be funded.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. If there are no more councillors wishing to speak, Councillor Goodsell, right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. So a lot of my questions were relating tonight around the community and the grant application process, and how they could possibly contribute to that, and how to alleviate any concerns that they would progress through and of course council would be successful, but obviously that's been taken off the table with the $30 million allocated. I look forward to the second week of April, when the all-weather road will become available for the residents to use regularly in and out of the valley. I do stress that communication around the key impacts on the Donkey Steps Road and the Coach Road, their opening times, their closing times, is communicated easily and made available to all members of the community. And that's about it from me. And a tremendous job from council. So thank you. So $30 million is amazing for one little council, regional council like ours, to receive. So a significant amount of work has gone into that application, and the work that you've done so far. So I take my hat off to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. 10.31, tender evaluation, detailed design and construction of the West Bowenfell Sewerage pumping station.
I'll move this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce.
I read through the report, the tender process and the evaluation of those tenders. The only disappointing part was that nobody that put in for this job was from in town. But good work for assessing those tenders and happy to go with the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie?
I thank the staff for their work on it. It's obviously a very important piece of infrastructure. I've got a concern, but not so much with the project, but that we've got the free water services and obviously drinking water, stormwater and sewage. I'm pleased that we're starting to move on getting stormwater out of sewage, because one of my concerns is these pieces of infrastructure are very important to our wastewater service, but my concern is that unless we address those other issues, the greying out of our catchment and developing sections of it without addressing some of those other problems, they can actually act as a impediment to development of housing stock. So whilst I applaud what's happening here, I think it needs to be part of a systems-based approach to improving our wastewater services.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's very helpful to see these trunk mains going in for future development in Bonefells and new subdivisions and all that, so that it's a very positive move for that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Yes, again, another question. I'm sorry about the questions, but that's the way it goes. Is this West Bonefells pumping station near Lockyer Street? And if so, is this would this resolve the problem of those residents in Lockyer Street who have in the past had sewage flowing through their properties?
Could you please answer, Councillor Leslie? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Staten. It's not, the actual position of the pump station hasn't been decided yet. It's a design and construct. So yeah, it will be, it's in there somewhere, but the actual position hasn't been laid out as such. So it is design and construct.
There were properties, you know, when I was mayor that had sewage in Lockyer Street, had sewage through their property. And yeah, as far as I'm aware, that the infrastructure has never quite been developed to prevent that happening in the future. Is this development likely to able to resolve that?
This development will replace 3 other pump stations. So this one pump station will replace 3 others. So a lot of the old choked up infrastructure will be replaced. We've also upgraded Tweed Mills just recently, and all this will flow into Tweed Mills. Tweed Mills is capable of being ramped up to at least twice the capacity it is now, with the way it's been configured. So I can't see there'll be issues, what you're talking about in Lockyer Street in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Travis-Kearney. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce, right of reply?
No, I'm right, thanks.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. 10.4, Finance and Asset Reports. Investment Report 2023. Could I have somebody move this? Thank you. Councillor Goodsell.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce.
No, just go with the recommendation.
Any dissent here? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. Acquisition of road encroachment. Could I have somebody please move this?
Happy to move.
Councillor Goodsell.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? There's no dissent. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. Proposed acquisition of Crown land and private land for road, item 10.4.3. Have somebody move this report?
I'll move
thank
it.
You. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a second, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce?
It's good to see this is going to come to an end. It's been going since 1920. That's a hell of a long time to have this issue ongoing. So it's a pleasing result.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very positive move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any dissent? Councillor Marnie?
Question, please. Supporting the action of council, that I'm interested that we are purchasing Crown roads and transferring them into our own when there's strategic or operational benefit, and certainly I'm interested in what happens around Hyde Park, which has very similar sorts of elements to it. So I'd be interested in our approach there. I don't need an answer tonight, but I'm noting that we are, when it proves appropriate, acquiring Crown roads to bring them into our road system. Well, I'm supportive of that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Any other speakers? No dissent. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. 10.5, policies and governance.
I'm happy to move. I just would like it explained. That's all. What are we actually moving? Because I don't understand what business continuing policy actually means.
I'll second it.
Mr. Gurney, thank you.
Oh, through you, Madam Mayor. So business continuity, it's part of risk management, and if council's business is impacted by any major events, which could range from a disaster to COVID pandemic, we tested our plans through that. It just ensures that we have plans in place to resume business as soon as possible, and contingencies as to what we will do in the event of a disaster. For example, we might be able to move IT services to a library. So it's ensuring that we have a framework in place that supports our plans for business continuity in the event of a major interruption. It also sets the time standards that we can we can not function for while we set up an alternative location.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney. Councillor Bryce?
No, that's fine.
Anybody else wishing to speak? No dissent. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Item 10.5.27, Valleys Tourism Committee Terms of Reference.
Happy to move.
I think Councillor Bryce was first. I'm not sure who was
I'm
second.
happy to second if Councillor
you.
Bryce is moving it.
Councillor Bryce?
It's good to see this coming back to a council meeting. I noticed in September 2017 meeting that this was changed to a subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee. This is a big part of our future, and we need to make sure that this committee is a committee of council. Also, I'm happy to nominate the Mayor as the chair.
Yeah, I'd
Thank you,
that.
Councillor Bryce. Seconder?
No.
Mm.
The one, so you need to ask the second if she accepts that in the original motion.
Councillor Coleman, do you
I'm
accept
happy
that
to
in the
accept
original
that. I'd also like to nominate for this committee as well, if Councillor Bryce is okay with that.
Oh, I'd like to nominate as well.
Any other nominations?
Yes, I'd like to nominate as well.
We only have one official position
Yes,
left.
I understand that.
So this is difficult. Or I'll get the GM, please, to go on.
Well, I think really we need to work out a voting procedure. There's two approaches. The council has resolved it by agreement with someone surrendering their interest in the committee, and therefore until there's one. Or alternatively, we have the three nominated and council votes, or we have some other electoral process, but we're not ready for another electoral process tonight. But we can certainly, what I'm hearing is that what's accepted at this point is that the mayor be the chairperson. There's one vacancy left under the terms of reference that are proposed. So I'm in council's hands in terms of how you want to determine the filling of the one vacant councillor position.
May I ask a question? So we can't amend that? We can't just add there's 3 people that clearly want to be on it? Why can't we have all 3?
There's terms of reference and we're to follow the terms of reference, and maybe nobody expected 3 councillors to go on it. There'll be 2 with the mayor. So the General Manager will clarify that. Thank you.
So it's a good, so the proposal is that this be a committee of council. Of course, all these committees operate under the remit that they're given by the council. So council ultimately approves the terms of reference. I guess I wasn't close to this, but one would presume there'd be governance principles sitting behind this. And, you know, we've reached out into the tourism industry and got cross-tourism industry representation. It's just a balance whether we dominate or swamp that with councillor representations. But the governance model that's being proposed is for 2 councillors, but that's a decision for the council.
Madam Mayor, can I give you an alternative procedure?
Happy to listen, Councillor Leslie.
We have a motion before us that that Councillor Coleman be the second nominee. We have an amendment that Councillor Bryce be the nominee instead of Councillor Coleman, and we have a foreshadowed motion that Councillor Marnie be the alternative. It's just a simple matter of proceeding through that amendment, then the foreshadowed amendment, and then putting the motion as amended.
I guess one could do that. At the end of the day, it doesn't provide the same equal rights to each party. It depends who goes up against each other first, and then one's knocked out. So it doesn't seem to me, at first impression, to be the most equitable way to do it, but it sort of knocks one out at a time.
Hands up who thinks I should go from first nomination to last or last to first. I don't have a problem.
No, the motion includes you as the chair under all circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, but what I'm saying is we're not going to sit here all night worrying about who's going to get this position. There are 3 eligible councillors. I have no favouritism whatsoever, even though it might look like that. So I don't care whether you go ask people that would like to have Councillor Marnie and then come back to Councillor Councillor Bryce and then Councillor Coleman, or we go to... Pardon?
Madam Mayor, my apologies. I thought it would be simple. I thought it was a simple process. I withdraw my suggestion, and I'll leave it with you and the General Manager to solve it.
I think the General Manager made us aware that would not be even.
No, but it still gets us to the point, so we can follow that, but just recognise. Councillor Leslie's approach gets us to a point where we nominate one person for the vacant spot. I'm being very pure. You know, if the councillors are happy to go into it with their eyes open and just move through those First Amendment, well then that one falls away, and then that remaining councillor goes up against the person in the foreshadow. We can do that. We end up back at the same point. I don't think there's any estoppel on doing that.
How about I put up? I'll just say all those in favour to Council.
So we just need to take a vote on the First Amendment.
Which was Councillor Bryce.
So we need a seconder for the First Amendment.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
So to be clear, we need a seconder for the First Amendment, which was, right, okay, so then Mayor, you can take a vote. Unless anybody wants to speak to that, you can take a vote on that amendment. So we're putting the resolution with the recommendation is amend as in the paper, with item 3 reading that the mayor be appointed to the role of chairperson, and that council determine between help me here, Councillor Leslie, the best way to word this?
The motion is that the Mayor Statham is the chair
Yes.
and Councillor Coleman is the deputy chair. The amendment is that Councillor Bryce replace Councillor Coleman.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
regardless of whether that's carried or not, we then move a second amendment whether Councillor Marnie replaces the person who has taken the spot, or Councillor Coleman if she maintains it. And then we put the whole motion as the motion as amended.
So we'll just put the amendment.
I'm going to put the amendment that Councillor Coleman,
No, the councillor.
Councillor Bryce, and myself be Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
Be the chair and deputy chair.
Deputy Chair.
Yep. Okay.
All those in favour say aye. Against? Lost? Thank you.
No, so the amendment.
The amendment now becomes the motion.
Amendment was carried.
The amendment was carried.
And that's the motion, but there's a foreshadowed amendment.
So Councillor Marnie,
Would you like to speak to so you have to put the foreshadowed amendment?
I'll put the foreshadowed amendment
The
with,
foreshadowed amendment. So the foreshadowed amendment as proposed by Councillor Marnie is, yes, and seconded by Councillor Leslie, is that the final point be again reaffirming Councillor Statham as the chairperson, but the foreshadowed amendment is that Councillor Marnie be the deputy chairperson.
right.
We need to put the foreshadowed amendment.
So I'll put the foreshadowed amendment for Councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye. Against? Lost. Thank you.
Well, I congratulate Councillor Bryce, and I've learned a lot more about meeting procedure, if nothing else.
So
Now we
return to what was the amended, the original agreed, approved, amended motion. So we put that again?
motion again with Councillor Coleman.
No, Councillor Bryce and yourself.
Yeah, that's right, and myself. All right.
I think everybody understands where
this has never happened before in my 13 years on council. That is a bit tricky. But anyway, thank you for Councillor Leslie's advice.
Put the vote.
We'll put the vote. Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
And against?
Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Leslie against.
And I'll have my name recorded against that.
Certainly Councillor Leslie.
So that's a division, yep.
So I will call an official division. Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
No, you see you go around. Yep.
Bryce, Goodsell, Goodwin, O'Connor, Marnie, McGee, Coleman and Statham. Against Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Where does Councillor Coleman come in?
Yeah. Yes, that's yourself. That's what happened. Yourself.
Very interesting. Thank you for participating in that exercise, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Also.
Congratulations, Councillor Bryce. Right. Confusing.
Yeah, with the late item now, Ross.
No, after this, I think. Before matters of great urgency.
That's the late item now.
Can I ask a question? Have we actually moved the remaining? Yes, okay.
Yes, it's the late.
We'll be dealing with the late item now, councillors. 10.5.3, Lithgow City Council's 2018 sale of land in Barton Avenue, Wallerwang. Could I have a mover for this, thank you.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor McGee.
In moving it.
Just point of order, there's a section in this that's a bit concerning. It says here, number 2, council
No, we're
take...
just not discussing this yet. We've got a
Okay.
mover and a seconder, Councillor Coleman, so you can ask the questions.
But the moving, we need somebody, we need the original mover to acknowledge that we need to take a decision.
So, Councillor Bryce, are you willing to say point 2, Council take a decision as to the public release of the original report for this matter, recognising that legal advice which featured in the report will be redacted and not released due to the been subject to legal privilege?
Moved it with that.
Yes. Just wanted to check. Yes, just to be clear, the General Manager will advise.
So just to be clear, Councillor Bryce, so you're moving item 2 that Council resolve to publicly release the original report for this matter, recognising that legal advice and the rest of that there. Yep. Thank you. And we've got a second for that.
Councillor McGee, you're happy to second that? Thank you. Councillor Bryce.
I think it's important that this is released. We've had so much. Oops, apologies. It's all right. We've had so much pressure from the community about this. We need to release it, become public knowledge, redact the things that need to be redacted, the legal stuff, get it out there for the public to see.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I think that it's imperative that we have transparency on this, and the more information given to the public and made public is got to be a good thing. You know, anything that the then Mayor, Councillor Leslie, can contribute to what actually happened would be very handy as well.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak on this?
Well, yes, I'd like to. Is the mover and seconder wish to speak to it before I do? They have? They've done? Okay. Well, I'd like to take up Councillor McGee's offer of speaking to it. As Mayor Statham pointed out last meeting, this went through when I was the Mayor, and as the minutes will show, the council officer's recommendation was carried unanimously. There are 5 councillors in this room who voted for it: myself, Councillors Statham, Goodwin, Goodsell and Coleman. I grew up in Lithgow, and I left when I was 18, and I came back in 2014. The rest of the council was present at that meeting, including the one who lives at Marangaroo and another at Wallerawang, have lived in Lithgow all their adult life, and at some point have campaigned on some version of, I'm born and bred in Lithgow, I know this town, let me tell you what went wrong. Immediately after I was elected as Mayor, I initiated a regular meeting with the General Manager and senior staff, and we would discuss matters that I raised and were matters that were on the council administration agenda. I finished every meeting with the question, is there any matter I should know about? And this was addressed to all present. With Roger Bailey and Acting General Manager Andrew Muir, this worked very well. Then Graham Faulkner was appointed as General Manager, and it all went pear-shaped. People have asked me, what is the role of the Mayor? And the answer is not to chair council meetings, because no matter how badly council meetings are chaired, the council will get through the agenda. The role of the Mayor is to have oversight of council operations. Councillors don't have access to senior staff briefings, and they should have, and they shouldn't have. But the Mayor should. And the Mayor should have access to senior council briefings. The Mayor is our representative, the councillor representative inside the council administration. When Faulkner became General Manager, I called this staff meeting as usual, and he threw me out shouting, how dare you call a meeting of my staff when you are only a councillor and you have no right to call this meeting?
Point of order, Councillor Leslie. General Manager would like to make a comment. Thank you.
I just caution Councillor Leslie about referring to historical matters and attaching those to individuals. I think it's very perilous and also just inappropriate. At the beginning of the meeting, there was a reminder given to all councillors to be careful in terms of the statements that are made against an individual, and I caution that it's not appropriate to do so.
Yes, I thank the General Manager for his. I thank the reason that. Thank you. I thank the General Manager for his warning, and I'm very comfortable about what I'm saying, and I indeed have many witnesses to the fact, and if there's consequences, I'm happy to wear them.
Councillor Leslie, I'm
Yes.
asking you to refrain from using names. As the Mayor,
Okay,
We're not going to be
well,
sued, so please refrain from moving.
I'm happy to be sued on this matter.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm chairing this meeting, so I'm asking you very nicely to refrain from using names.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
He then sent an email to all councillors, senior staff and some junior staff, pointing out that I had no authority to call such a meeting. The email included the local government Act of Powers of the Mayor. Of course, it was known that I was the accidental mayor, the one elected with the coup of the barrel.
Point of order.
Would not
Sorry.
get the support of the
Councillor
councillors.
Leslie, thank you, Councillor Goodsell. You know you're crossing the line, and I'm not going to
You need to
react.
hear my
I'm
point of
asking
order.
you to. Yes, Councillor Goodsell, point of order. Thank you. What would you like me to address, Councillor Leslie, with your point of order?
This is in relation to making a document public about the sale of the land in Barton Avenue, Wallerawang only.
That's correct.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's about...
Excuse me, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Goodsell is absolutely correct. We're not here to discuss the previous incidents or whatever has occurred. We're here tonight to discuss the late report on the Barton Avenue land at Wallerawang. So I would suggest that you continue. Very happy for you to continue, but keep on task, or I will ask you to leave the chambers or refrain from speaking. Your choice. Thank you.
I refer to the document in front of me, late report, Lithgow City Council's 2018 sale of land in Barton Avenue. I thought that's what we were discussing. You know, halfway down, we have the comment, General Manager's comment, this land was sold some years ago. Surely that's what we are discussing. And I take up Councillor McGee's thought, perhaps, Mayor Leslie, or as he then was, can clarify on the matter. Well, I'm proceeding and trying to do exactly the same thing. I feel that your request to talk about matters happening in 2023 is inaccurate. But fair enough. Back to the issue at hand.
Excuse me, just one moment, please. Could I get somebody to move it that Councillor Leslie gets an extension?
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. All those in favour?
Yeah, I'm happy
You need
to.
a second. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. All those in favour? Just hands up, thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Continue, Councillor Leslie.
I thank the council for that. I really do. But yes, back to the issue at hand. The sale of the large residential block would have been subject to discussion at a mayoral, general manager and senior staff meeting.
There, I'll just stop you there. Mayors are not entitled to be with a senior management meeting. I have never in 13 years.
Yes,
so take that out of the equation, thank you. Could you please address that, Mr General Manager? Never been given an invitation ever. Mr General Manager?
I really think you shouldn't put the General Manager on the spot
I
like
want
that.
the truth to come out. I have never been asked. ELT is the executive only, not the Mayor. No.
There are clear divisions between the role of the Mayor as the representative of the elected council and the operations, and there needs to be a clear distinction between those two. However, with your indulgence, I also want to encourage the council to stick within the body of this report and the content within this report, rather than drifting into hearsay and what may or may not have been said in meetings with individuals, because I don't think can't be undone, and it's not relevant to the matter that's before the council. But Mayor, that's your ruling.
I totally agree. I'm very delighted this is going to be a transparent report come through. Councillor Leslie, this is your last chance. Thank you. One more point of order and you're going to have to stop.
Thank you, Ms Nathan. It became relevant that the moment that Councillor McGee threw my name in as being the Mayor at the time. That's when it became relevant, and I have every right to address that issue, and I'm afraid. But I agree, we can't change history. We can't change the decision that was made then, However and whyever it was made, we can't change that. But we can change the future. I intend to move at the next council meeting that the Mayor of Lithgow Council have the authority to call and chair, if so desired, meetings of the general staff and senior of the meetings of the general manager and senior council staff.
Excuse me, Councillor
Councillor
Leslie.
Point
Point of order, Councillor Leslie.
Yes, yes.
I don't like doing this. You are not to speak on this subject anymore. I'm very happy to get on with the staff so well that I don't feel like I have to go to an executive meeting. They come into my office singly and give me an update on any project I wish to ask for. I've got no intention of listening to you speak about something that could go on the agenda. Bring it forward next week, next month, next year. It's not on the agenda tonight. So anybody else wishing to speak on the agenda tonight?
One last point, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Councillor Leslie, no worries.
Madam Mayor.
Point of order from Councillor Sil.
It's just, again, we're trying to get a decision on releasing a report, a decision that was made in 2018 to make it public, and that's what we need to focus on.
That's correct. Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. So moving along, anyone else wishing to speak, please?
I wish to speak.
Councillor Coleman, thank you. Councillor Coleman was before you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Coleman.
I was
Mr. Martin Ticehurst is right. This council deserves.
Point of order. I'll ask to your.
Get out of here.
Point of order, regardless of what people think about Councillor Leslie, I think if we can have a bit of decorum around whether he wants to make these statements, that's all fine. But
No,
I
it's
think
not, Councillor
No, I listened in the last council where people sat up on the executive talking about people as being scumbags. I'm sorry, I won't stand for it.
That's Councillor Marnie, so let's move on. I totally respect what you've said.
In this meeting 2 minutes ago it happened.
Sorry, I do apologise for that, for calling
Could you
Councillor
please,
Leslie a
Councillor
scumbag.
Coleman, move your point of view? Thank you.
Firstly, I'd like Councillor McGee to apologise, which he's done. So we need that noted.
Thank you, absolutely.
Because I think that's important, because Councillor Marnie has reason to pull that up. I was one of the councillors mentioned by Councillor Leslie. My concern about this report going out to the public is going to put fuel on the fire. I would like to ask the question of the administration, what was the purpose of bringing this report and making it public? What is the intention?
Mr. General Manager.
Mayor, I think the report speaks to that. This hasn't been a live issue in the community since the 2017 decision. A recent development application has attracted commentary and that has attracted some public attention. The original report was dealt with in a confidential session of council because it included commercial information and there was a basis to take it there, but those bases have really passed and I see no harm in the report. There is nothing in the report. So the questions that are being asked by the community are readily answerable, I believe, in the report. So was fair value obtained? Was it legally open to the council to do a sale to one party? And the like. Other questions are clearly answered and there's no basis and no reason today, as distinct from 2017, for these to not be available. And of course local government operates under a system of great transparency and the community, I argue, is entitled to receive this information.
Absolutely. Thank you, General Manager. I concur with that totally. Councillor Marnie?
I'll just speak briefly to this. I thank the staff for bringing forward a report on this matter. I support any level of transparency that we can achieve through these, whether some people will see the matter as incomplete, the report as far as its detail, because of its redacted nature. I would rather see this as a minimum out there, so I thank the staff for bringing the report forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. The General Manager would like to make another comment. Thank you. And then Councillor O'Connor. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, just to make it abundantly clear, I remembered one of the other key points, and in fact, one of the questions or concerns that are now being played out by the community with the development application that's being assessed for a residential subdivision, and that is why was the land sold for the purpose of a school, and if a school is not coming forward now, why is that so? Well, the report reveals that there was a concept which included a school, but the council did not require and did not sell the land on the basis of the school. It obtained the value based upon the development potential of the site, but it didn't specifically limit the development to a school nor require a school. I wasn't here at the time, but the resolution did not require that, nor did the administration recommend that. And I think that's a really important point. That's why I wanted to speak to it, because again, this is one of the points that the public are asking about.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor, have you finished, Councillor Coleman? Yeah. Councillor O'Connor, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a good report to bring through, because in the community there's rumours it's worth 30 million. It was never worth 30 million, or it's not worth 5 million today. The land is only worth what they're talking if it's development, if it's developed. Plus you've got all the development costs, the holding costs since the people bought it for 1.2 or whatever, for 7 years interest is a lot of money. Then you've got all the headworks charges, electricity, sewer, everything else to put in to develop the land. So that's what makes the land valuable, is when it's developed, not where it's raw land and people say it's worth, like somebody come here last week and said it was worth 20 million or 27, wherever he got the figure from. It was just pulled out of the air. It's not worth 27, or it'll never turn over 27 million. Never mind saying it's worth it, but this document at least goes out to the community and they'll see that it was done legal, right or wrong. And they didn't put the school in there was nothing put on to say they had to put a school. So it's their land now, they can do whatever they like with it.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Right of reply, if there's nobody else wishing to speak? No? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce.
Yeah, look, I went through the minutes and the council paper for the September 2017 meeting, and there was no dissent. Everyone voted for this to happen. So if there was any issues, it's not reflected in the minutes. So if a person in the community reads that, there's no concerns, nothing came up. So it's really important that we get this document out to them so that they can alleviate some of these concerns they had.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.1, Environmental Advisory Committee minutes of the 8th of February.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a second to thank you?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Bryce?
There were some issues with those minutes. Were they fixed? Councillor?
I don't believe that some of the committee members were satisfied with it. But my apologies, Mayor. We shouldn't.
Yes. There were some issues with the minutes. I'm just asking, was those minutes amended?
Mr McGrath will speak to that, Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. We received some notes quite late in the piece, so this report had already been published, and we received some notes from a member of the committee on Thursday evening, so just gone. So we haven't had a chance to even dissect those notes to inform the minutes that are before you in the business paper.
Can I ask that this report be moved to the next meeting so that we can go through those minutes better?
Yes, I just asked the General Manager, could we defer this? We can't vote on something that may not be correct. Is that fine with you, Mr McGrath?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
there may be one or two points in there. Some of it is to do with typographical issues, minor matters, but there may be something in the email that we received late Thursday evening that needs to be amended.
Just in case there is, I'll suggest that we defer this until next council meeting. Is that, could I have a vote on that, please, from the councillors?
Just speak to that.
No, I'm just asking for a vote.
I'll
Are we
move
going
that
to
it be
vote
deferred
on-
to the next meeting.
Okay, well, I'll have to vote against it.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Coleman. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you.
Right, so Councillor Marnie's against.
Councillor Marnie's against. Thank you.
So that was an amendment.
Yes.
He's against, so it becomes the motion now.
Yes.
So we need to put it again.
Yes. So that was an amendment. So I'll make all those in favour of the amendment.
Which is the motion now.
Yeah, the motion, okay. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. Carried. Councillor Marnie against. Thank you. Item 11.2, TALC Committee meeting minutes of the 2nd of March 2023.
Move.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I note in the TALC committee met on the 2nd of March and they discussed the pre-polling location and the parking concerns, which, as we all know, the state election was held on Saturday and pre-poll was 5 days prior to that. I personally lived on pre-poll. I handed out for the party of my choosing and it was a concern. The parking was an issue. Numerous people who had disability issues and mobility issues had real concerns with the parking. I just want it noted that hopefully we can assist the Electoral Commission with a more appropriate site in the future. It really is a dreadful situation for those that have difficulties, as I said, with mobility and disability.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
I agree with Councillor Coleman. The pre-polling area was terrible. The parking was atrocious. It needs to be relooked at through the TALC committee.
Yes, Mr Edgecombe is going to address that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Just very briefly, that was the outcome of the discussion at the TALC meeting. We'll work with the Electoral Commission to identify a couple of alternative sites, and it's up to them to make that decision one way or the other.
For councillors, it's page 37.4 and the last point, correspond with Electoral Commission advisor the parking concerns, suggesting that an alternative venue with off-street parking be brought for future events. Anybody else wishing to speak on this?
Just a comment on...
Sorry, go on, Councillor.
Sorry, Eric. Just a comment, seeing that we are talking about elections. Congratulations to Paul Toole for increasing his majority by 4% in matters. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Marnie.
I won't be congratulating any political parties across the state, but they've all had some good results. Just in regard to the special event parking for Rydal, I think it's a point that is going to plague us a little bit. I know we had issues at the Lithgow show as far as people parking and then receiving infringement notices. It's something we've got to work a lot better on in having, and particularly for those two councillors on the tourism committee, we need to make sure when we have these events that we're providing adequate support to these projects to ensure that we don't have really what ended up a pretty adverse outcome for participants attending the show. So that's the only comment I'll make on the special event parking issues.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Coleman.
No, I'm happy for the motion to be put.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. Carried. 11.3, Audit and Risk Improvement Committee, ARIC, minutes of the 14th of March 2023.
Happy to move.
Thank you,
Happy
Councillor
to second.
Goodsell. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Goodsell. Councillor Goodwin.
No thanks.
Anybody else? Councillor Marnie?
Yes, I have a question. Wasn't really able to address it as a risk and governance issue in the Environmental Advisory Committee minutes. As we deferred it, I'll deal with it when it comes in front of us again. I would like to know if there's incomplete, in my mind, issues relating to risk and governance. How do I bring something forward to the ARIC committee?
Mr. Suitable person to answer that question, Councillor Marnie?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I compile the agenda and all of the reports are based on the responsibilities of the committee. So there's a specific report on risk. You can certainly send me an agenda item, and being a council committee, all councillors are welcome to attend as non-voting members.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney. Are you happy with that, Councillor Marnie? Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodsell, right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Business of great urgency. Councillor
Yes.
Bryce?
I'd like to apologise for my outburst just previously. I apologise to Councillor Leslie and the rest of my council for my misbehaviour.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. It was a very disturbing time at a council meeting. I accept your apology on behalf of the councillors, and I'm sure Councillor Leslie will. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Marnie's? Don't need a seconder? No. All right. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'd like someone now to move into closed council, please. Could we move into closed council?
Nathan, just one thing.
Councillor Goodwin, sorry.
That I should bring up now, because I meant to bring it up at the start where we voted for the minutes of the previous meeting. There's one thing that was omitted just for, I suppose, for continuity's sake, is that the gentleman that stood up in relation to Bunnings, he spoke last week, he came here, it's not in the minutes that he actually got up and spoke at public forum. So I'd like that just to be put back into the minutes. I know we amended it, but I forgot all about bringing it up.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Good point, and I'm sure that'll be corrected. Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak on matters of great urgency? Councillor Marnie?
Just a precautionary approach with tomorrow night's meeting. I'm just concerned that the meeting venue may in fact not be big enough, and I think it'd be very unfortunate if people are left out on the street. I've probably met more people in the days between that plan being brought in front of council than I did in the entire 12 months before the election and the 12 months after. So those people who have received letters are feeling quite strongly about the issue, and I just want to make sure that we don't put an impediment to them attending the meeting. So whether we can have a tentative booking at the Union Theatre, I don't know whether you'll get 100 people. You may only get 20 people, but certainly more than 20 people spoke to me, and I know another number of councillors have had a chat to me, and they've had similar experiences. So
Yes, I'm sure all councillors have had to deal with some questions that perhaps we don't even know the answer to. Mr McGrath would like to address that, Councillor Marnie. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. Yeah, we do have a contingency plan in place. So based on some of the comments that we've received, or feedback rather, that we've received from councillors and others, we did consider how many we're likely to get at this meeting tomorrow evening. The lecture theatre at the Hub holds 90 odd people. So if you added a few standing, perhaps, but we've also got an overflow option there. So if we get too many people in the lecture theatre, they can join the meeting in the room next door, which is called the Zoom room, and the presentation, the screen presentation from the engineers, from Lyles and Associates, will be up on that screen. So they'll be able to receive the full presentation. They may not be in the actual room, but they'll be just next door. So we weighed up moving the whole venue to somewhere like the Union Theatre, but because it is such a presentation-based meeting, we felt that wouldn't do it justice. Also, there'd be issues with sound and people may not be able to hear correctly or properly. So we weighed it up and came up with a plan B, if you like, that we can cater for some overflow.
Thank you, Mr McGrath. So are councillors happy to go along and take Mr McGrath's instructions? Well, your idea, your suggestion, or a suggestion that sounds like it could be suitable. I mean, we don't know. Nobody's RSVP'd. How do councillors think? Please talk about it. We're locked in. All right. Okay. Thank you. You happy with that, Councillor Marnie? Yeah. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak of matters of great urgency? No. I'll go on now to page 41.
We need to move into closed
that's what I've
council,
just
so
asked.
I'll move that way.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Price.
Put it, Mayor.
Just, aye. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you.
confidential mayoral minute, item 13.1. The resolution is that following the General Manager's performance review on 23rd of March 2023, councillors note the performance review report prepared by independent consultant Mr Matthew MacArthur. 2, based on the performance review report, the result of a very satisfactory performance level for the General Manager. Thank you. I'll start again, councillors. So item 13.1, the resolution is as follows, that 1, following the General Manager's performance review on 23 March 2023, councillors note the performance review report prepared by independent consultant Mr Matthew MacArthur. 2, based on the performance review report, the result of a very satisfactory performance level for the General Manager's performance review be noted. And 3, that 19 out of 22 criteria from the councillors' review was at or above a score of 3.5 out of 5.
Thank you, Mr McGrath. Thank you to the councillors attending this evening. The meeting has closed at 9:20. Thank you.